It's the Fixed Ops Mastermind today, from the subway to the parts department. Kaylee Filio coming up. Everybody, a big thank you to our sponsors, John Traver with Traver Connect, Les Silver at Dynatron Software, Russ Hill at Fixed Ops Marketing, Kaylee Filio with PartsEdge, and of course, Quantum 5. The Fixed Ops Mastermind is powered by Quantum 5. Quantum 5 is the first ever sustainable training technology for automotive. Recent winner of a Brian Pash AWA Award for innovation and disruption in the training segment. Reach out today, Dave at quantum5.ai, or you can just go to the website, quantum5.ai, find out more, schedule your introductory call, and do it soon, and still get our NADA 2022 special. All right, let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody, to the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. We are excited to have our guest today, Kaylee Filio from PartsEdge. Kaylee, welcome to the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's awesome to have you here. So for those who do not know you, which would be anybody who is not on LinkedIn in the last year, give people a little overview of where you came from and how you wind up as the sales and marketing manager for PartsEdge.
So I've been the sales and marketing manager at PartsEdge for about 6 years. Worked with PartsEdge total about 10 years. And they found me at a Subway restaurant. So the founders of PartsEdge were my regular customers, and they offered a position, or they asked if I knew anyone, and they were actually asking me. So I took the position because it was something new and different. And I was in the point where I was like, okay, I want a career. And Subway was, you either own one or you stay there forever. So,
yep.
That's kind of how I ended up in the auto business. I've always worked for PartsEdge. I went off in between. That's why I say like a total of 10 years, because there was a couple years in between where I left and did real estate, and found that I really loved the sales and marketing aspect of business. So when that became open at PartsEdge, I took that position.
And that's a similar story to a lot of us in automotive, right? We got into it and maybe didn't expect that we were going to get into it, and tried to get out of it, and it pulls you back in. Right?
Definitely.
So, and Subway kind of has some parallels to parts, right? If the pieces of a sandwich are just like the parts that need to be moved around and inventoried, and you got to have the right amount on hand every day and things. So there's certainly some parallels that they saw there when they brought you into the business.
Yeah, it was weird when I was first training, they would all compare things to Subway so that I would understand them in the inventory aspect. So
there you go.
Yeah, it's interesting how it kind of aligns, but totally different because there's a lot less moving parts as far as inventory goes with Subway.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, so certainly a lot less, and you're not really worried about the ham being delivered the next morning on an emergency order to get somebody's sandwich out, right? So
exactly. But people got mad if we didn't have ham or a certain product for their sandwich.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
No doubt. So, after you get into the business, what is it about the sales and marketing side of it that really gets you going?
I think it was the challenge of the fact that we didn't have any marketing at PartsEdge, and very little sales process. So I think the challenge of like figuring out how to create content and the message of what we do, to translate to speak to parts managers really. Because without them utilizing our service, there is really no service. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it was the challenge.
So the challenge of the challenge of explaining to a parts manager how you can help them. Sometimes that's difficult, right? To get through your message. You can see what you have is very, very valuable. But you need to be able to convey that to somebody else and show them the value of you coming in, because I'm sure a lot of parts managers, like a lot of professionals, are sitting there going, I know my stuff. I don't need this additional layer, right?
Exactly.
So what are some of the things that you can show them, that kind of open their eyes to the fact that this can help them, that it can make their job easier?
That's a great question. I think it's really boils down to the data and showing them really what's going on with their inventory and like the decisions that they're making and the impacts of those decisions. And especially if the DMS isn't set up to be more efficient for them, we can easily identify that, and just a few tweaks and consistency of those tweaks can really go a long way to really save them time. Because I think a lot of them spend time, or they don't really have time to sit down and do those things with the DMS and the inventory. So,
Mm-hmm. So I think parts is one of those parts of the, so to speak, no pun intended, of the business that that people don't understand very much, right? It's service is already the back of the house, and parts is like the back of the house.
yeah.
Right? The parts is always like away from customers and things, and always like the unsung heroes, if you will, of the dealership. Everything that we do relies on the parts department getting us what we need, whether that's a 2-cent washer or a $5,000 engine, right? So what are some of the logistical things that kind of go into making sure that happens, that we have what we need when we need it?
There's a lot with that. It's I think it actually boils down to the sourcing and the DMS and how they're organizing the system. And I think that why it's not like why we don't focus on it as much is it kind of just works. Like it produces results and it does well and performs well, kind of not automatically, but kind of automatically, right? Like it just does what it's supposed to do. It supports the service, and but I think why it's not focused on is like we can take it to another level of efficiency and getting more of the right parts by just utilizing that DMS a little bit better. I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah. So it does. So I guess getting to that point of having the right parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
This you listen all the time to the frustrations of why don't we have that, and we're picking it up at a dealer 10 miles away from us? Why do they have it and we don't have it?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the considerations for a parts manager to know what to keep in stock, right? Because it's some things are obvious: oil filters, air filters, that type of thing. But they don't know when a check engine light comes on that a car is going to need an oxygen sensor tomorrow, right? So, but we expect them to have that oxygen sensor for us when we need it. So, what are some of the considerations that go into parts managers being able to make those decisions on what to actually keep in stock?
I think it's testing those parts. So like there are going to be parts where you just aren't going to have them. That's just the fact of doing business. But if it's a consistent part or a consistent thing that's going on, it's testing those parts and putting them in smaller phasing criteria so that you can actually get those. Because I think that's what's happening is a lot of parts get into one category and the phasing criteria, you can't break out the phasing criteria. So if you can separate the parts into more categories, you can have different phasing criteria for those. And then that's how you can easily identify whether or not you should stock that part or not. And then testing it, and seeing if it's the right part for your.
So,
Yeah.
so that, and that's one of the things there, right? You just talked about the phasing categories. So for people that don't understand that, what does that mean? What is a phasing category in parts?
So a phasing criteria is like, I think the standard is like a 3 and 9, 3 months. So if you get a hit on a part 3 times in the matter of 9 months, I believe it is, that means you should stock that part. So hopefully I'm saying that right. But yeah, there's like a 2 and 9 or a 2 and 12 or 1 and 9. So like it varies by part whether or not you should have those certain criterias, because you don't want to group them all into one, because that doesn't, I mean, I think most people understand that too. So
well, most people may be within understanding parts, but I think there's a lot of people on the service side, certainly advisors, but managers, directors that never had any involvement with parts that don't understand that, right?
Yeah.
So they see that we ordered 2 Bank 2 oxygen sensors last month, right? And they say, okay, I got another one. Why don't you have one of these in stock? Well, maybe because it was in that category, right? Of you needed 3 in 9 months, and there was no subcategory to say if we had 2 in 1 month that we should order one and have one on hand, right? So it's about that communication between the departments to understand what each of them is going through.
Exactly.
Right? Parts manager is going to say the same thing when they say, why is there no work here today? Like, you knew what your schedule was. Why did we have more than we could do yesterday and we have nothing to do today?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing on the parts side, right? They're going to say, why did I have every part I needed yesterday and today I have none of the parts that I need?
That makes sense. The communication, I guess, is key, right? To understand what's going on and why.
Absolutely. And so within those categories, is that something that the manufacturer decides, or is that something that individual parts managers have some control over?
I think it's a mixture. So depending on the manufacturer, they have their auto stock replenishment programs. So like, GM has RIM and Chrysler has Aero or ARO, however you want to say it. So I think they have specific guidelines as far as the sources go, but it's a mixture. So because they don't guarantee the whole inventory. So you can, the parts manager has some control over that as well.
Mm-hmm. And so when parts departments end up with inventory that they didn't use or didn't need, what happens with that inventory?
Well, that's a broad question too. So it depends on if it's a manufacturer returnable part. So they can return those parts within a certain time period. Every manufacturer is different. And then there's the ones that are just non-returnable. So there's multiple things you can do as far as trying to offset your obsolescence. And I think, it boils down to really like how did those parts end up? Why do you have so much in the obsolescence? I know it's a fact of doing business, but there's a certain percentage where it kind of becomes a little bit out of control. And that's where you have to identify what not mistakes, I guess, kind of mistakes were made and how can we fix those? So, yeah.
Right. And so how does PartsEdge help parts departments avoid getting into trouble with obsolescence?
There's a lot of things we do. I think it's really boils down to the consistency of us working with a parts manager on a daily and monthly basis to identify when those things are starting to go south and quickly fixing those. So, staying on top of special orders, I think, is the biggest thing that we see. And we're giving parts managers more time to focus on those. So we don't actually resolve the special order problem,
Mhm.
but they do have more of the right parts by working with us, but they're still going to be special order. So making sure that the parts manager or someone is staying on top of those. And then if there's a huge obsolescence problem, identifying what happened and making sure that it doesn't continue to come back. And so yeah, we don't really have a way of getting rid of obsolescence. If it's like sometimes we're compared to like a parts broker, and we're not that.
Right.
We just help, get it the list there.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's freeing up the time for the manager to be able to actually do some things proactively to keep things moving, right? To make sure that those special order parts get turned into appointments that can then get put in the car, so they're not stuck with that, and time to continue to go through their inventory and make a plan to get rid of those things, right? It's a problem that we have in our industry where we keep piling stuff onto people without consideration for the fact that every new job or new thing that we ask them to do is taking away a few minutes of their day where they could be doing something proactively to increase the income of their department.
Yeah, exactly. That's our biggest thing that we say is, we're there to support them and make sure that they have a resource, because I feel like there's not a lot available for them to fall back on or question or just ask, or if they have ideas. I know that there's been so many parts managers we work with that are very advanced for being a parts manager, and they just have ideas to accomplish the things, and having that support to help them achieve that goes so much further than, just them being them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. At Quantum 5, I mean, it's the same type of thing, right? We're trying to make the training and the sustainment of the training into small bites for advisors, parts managers, leaders in the dealership, to be able to engage with without spending a lot of time doing it. But in doing that, they're increasing their skills, which will then free up more time for them throughout their day to be able to better serve their clients, both internally and externally, the customers that are driving cars in, and the customers from sales and from parts and things that need additional help. So it's the same thing. It's saving people time by helping with the skill positions.
That totally makes sense. That's what I love about what you guys are doing at Quantum 5. So
thank you.
Sure.
It's needed, right? Just like your service is needed for parts to be able to free up their time, because those guys are they're usually the most understaffed department and the busiest department, right? So
yes.
They need the support, as well as service advisors who tend to get stuck in the middle. I've always said the service advisor is the hardest job in the dealership, because they have sales coming at them for things. They have outside customers coming at them for things. They have parts coming at them. They have the management coming at them for things, and the technicians. They're like in the middle of everything, and everybody wants something from them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So to go off the subject of parts for a minute. So being a woman in the car business, obviously that has kind of come to the forefront over the last few years, as it should have a long time ago. And I've said for a long time that the women advisors that I worked with were always the best advisors. They were the most conscientious, the most attention to detail, the most customer focused. And also from the standpoint of a technician, those same things that the way your minds work is way better than the way our minds as a man works. So what are some of the things that you've seen in working in the car business that have been, I don't want to say beneficial, that's not the right word I'm looking for, that have been good about being in the car business, and also being a woman? Like we hear about struggles, we hear about the glass ceiling of things, but what are some of the good things that you've seen in the industry?
And I think bringing up the past couple of years too, I've really noticed a difference in a shift. So it's been great. And I think the positive things is like really shining a light on it and highlighting those women that are doing and making an impact on our industry. Because there's so much opportunity in the auto industry that a lot of people, like we said, don't really go to school or say like, oh, I'm gonna go work at a dealership or sell things to dealerships. So yeah, it's just it's really great seeing those highlights of women just making a difference, I think.
Yeah, it certainly the last couple of years it has definitely accelerated, and it's great to see more of an influx of women into the business, from the standpoint of things that I mentioned, because you guys are very good at what you do, but also obviously as the talent pool starts to go away and people don't come into this business as much, isolating a whole segment of society doesn't make much sense. Right. And it's an industry that you can get into with a very low barrier of entry, as far as, what you need education wise, or even just knowledge of the business wise. You can come into the business as right. You come into the business knowing nothing about this business as I did when I started. And you can still rise to the highest levels of this business, without needing to have some advanced degree or any kind of crazy things behind you. And so what is it that you think we can do to highlight the opportunities in this business, to get more people and more specifically to get more women to come into this business?
I mean, I think I had talked about this before, but like going to colleges and like schools, like even high schools really, to promote the auto industry and the opportunities there. I think that's the biggest thing because I think high school is probably the best place to start, because that's when you really start thinking about like whether I want to go to college and there's such a heavy push on college, which I don't think there's anything wrong with going to college and investing in that thing. Personally, that wasn't for me, and I didn't want to do that because I just never really I think the difference too is like the hands-on learning and the opportunity of that auto can bring to people is, I think that a lot of people can relate to that and want that. There are people that want to go to school, and I love learning in that way. But then there's a lot of people that like to learn hands-on. And I think that's the thing that we need to focus on is there's the opportunity to come in with nothing and you can just learn and go so many different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very large industry, right? There's a lot of different things that you can do within this industry, both inside the dealership or, like outside the dealership in the vendor space, in the working for the manufacturers. There's so much that can be done, that doesn't necessarily have to put you inside a dealership or even be a customer facing type position. Right. There's a lot of other things. And I think you're right. I think we've got to do a better job at outreach, and getting to the high schools, and not just focusing on the technical high schools, getting into just regular high schools. Every dealership is in a town or a city, right? They have high schools. Yes. They have high schools there. They need to be getting out there and talking to those kids.
They should. And I think high schools welcome that, because I mean, when I was in high school, I remember we had a body shop class, we had a metals class, and I don't think they do a lot of that anymore. At least where the high school I went to, I don't think they have that anymore. But that's the opportunity right there. Go in at the dealership, talk about the opportunities, and then, they can even work while they're in high school at the dealership. So
yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of stories of people that started working at dealerships, right? Washing cars when they were in high school and are now are now Scott Joseph is somebody who comes to mind. He owns 3 dealerships now, right? But his first job was, his dad was a GM at a store, but he started washing cars in high school. So that's, you can go as far as you want from washing cars to owning dealerships. It's all open for you.
Yeah.
Kaylee, where is the best place for people to connect with you if they want to find out more about you, more about PartsEdge?
I would say, go to our website, partsedge.com, explore that. There's a contact form, or LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. So, just connect with me.
Awesome. I will make sure that we put that LinkedIn profile in the show notes to make sure everybody can get to you. I want to thank you so much for being with us today. This was a lot of fun, and learned some stuff about the parts department and about how PartsEdge can help those parts departments free up some time to better serve their internal and external customers.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.